And as he came out, they identified themselves, put the flashlights on him, and told him he was under arrest. Well, instead of submitting to the arrest and going by, he fired. Fortunately, these men in their training had learned to hold the flashlights out to the side rather than like this. He was shooting a double-aught buckshot with a 3-inch Magnum, and of course it went just below the lights that they were holding out. Well, they didn't have anything to do, but he was reloading. It was a single barrel shotgun. While he was reloading, and he told them, he says, "You'll never take me out of here alive." And while he was reloading, they opened fire on him and shot him. Well, then picked him up and took him to Whiteville. Well, the man eventually died. He lost so much blood that he had died, and which we certainly didn't. We're sorry about it, but there was just no way that these men could have done otherwise. It was their life or his, and that was probably one of the low points of the career. And this only agitated him that much more, and so it was a veritable war down there for the next 6 months or so, until finally we went through the court process and got everything taken care of legally. Of course, the officers were found not guilty of any crime, but it brought up the question then of what authority does a wildlife officer have? And at the time we really didn't know, because except for the Ellis case where the wildlife officer killed the trout fisherman who was attacking him with a rock, we had no law on our side. But this seemed to solidify the authority that the state has about enforcing its conservation laws in the state. So we got through that. Some of them moved off. Some of them changed their minds. Some of them even gave us information later on. But it was a hot time. I remember you and I and Frank Plower going down and putting up an emergency radio system on a fire tower there, so we would have radio communications when we were working out
I
here.
remember that.
Our radio system was very, very archaic compared to what we have today. In fact, my wife operated a base station at her home, and she was on call 24 hours a day, and she got $50 a month for this chore. And it worked like that all over the state. We had a base station in each district, but she was a great help, and she was probably should have been paid a salary or given a medal or something, because she saved the day in many cases. But calling highway patrol or coordinating activities from one officer to another, where we didn't have but about 15 miles direct communications from one person to another, and but helping call in people and things of that nature, or making arrangements and to meet, whatever. So that was, and of course the boating law had been placed upon us by the legislature, and of course in southeastern North Carolina, with all the lakes and the sounds and the Atlantic Ocean up to the 3-mile limit, it was taking about half of our time to enforce the motorboat law, and which was fairly new to us at the time. It began in 1958, and as a side note, Bob, I made the first drunken boating operation in North Carolina.
That's right, you did.
It was at Hamburg Lake in Greensboro, and it couldn't have been a more classical event. because I got information that a man and his son were out in the lake, and he was heavily drinking. And so, not having a boat at the time, I just waited on him. It was getting late in the afternoon, and here they come chugging in. Well, he docked his boat, and it was obvious that he was heavily intoxicated. And his little son, about 4 or 5 years old, sitting in the bow, no life preservers in the boat. And he unscrewed his boat motor and picked it up. And when he did, he went over backwards with the boat motor on top of him, and it took him right straight to the bottom in about 6 feet of water. Well, I had to jump in and save him in order to arrest him. So I finally got him out, got the boat out, and I arrested him, and the man got 12 months jail time. They suspended 11 months of it, I believe, if I can remember correctly, and that he was not to operate any motorboat or vehicle of any kind for 12 months or so. So it was a very unusual case. Not often do you save a person just right
To haul him into court. Yeah.
But getting back to District 4, at this time I was still going to Chapel Hill and doing the training. During these times, the commission had sent me to the University of Louisville for specialized training in crime scene investigation and scientific investigation. And I had attended another school of criminal investigation at the university, and numerous other schools. And I felt like I was fairly competent to teach subjects within that area. And I did quite a bit of teaching in addition to setting up schools and developing schools with the best wishes of the chief at the time. And I believe it was maybe Don about this time in the 70s. Things plugged on, things got better, it seemed. And about 1979, I was called and told I was to be transferred to District 9, which is the mountains state up in the Waynesville area. Well, my kids had grown up, and we loved the town we were living in, Elizabethtown, and we had right many reservations about moving, but we moved to Waynesville, and I say that was the best move that I've ever had. We loved it there, and Dan Robinson was the commissioner at the time, and that was a experience each day to work in those mountains and go from one part to another, and to work the different things. We had 1.5 million acres of U.S. Forest Service land it was in the game lands program. You weren't harassed by landowners, petty peeves, and this sort of thing, and we had a goodly supply of bear, deer, grouse, good fishing, good hunting of all kinds, and a good bunch of men who were very dedicated. We had a strong element of the game lands men up there who had previously been wildlife officers or had been certified as wildlife officers and worked as that on the area that they were assigned to. But somewhere in the interim, they had a choice of becoming wildlife enforcement officers or staying in the position as a game lands personnel. But in staying with the game lands personnel, they lost their power of arrest, because by that time the North Carolina Standards Commission, Law Enforcement Standards Commission, had set out certain standards for being a law enforcement officer. So you had to be one or the other. But I enjoyed my work with the fisheries division, the trout people, and the game lands people, and especially with the U.S. Forest Service. I had heard that there had been some problems between the two agencies, and I didn't see any problem at all while I was there. In fact, I've got a plaque from the Forest Service people appreciation for the cooperation that we gave them in that area. They gave me that when I left the Raleigh office I left the mountains to go into the Raleigh office as a major, which, in my opinion, was the biggest mistake I ever made.
Accepting a promotion?
Yeah, accepting a promotion.
Yeah.
But my career was winding down. I could see 30 years, and my time frame was that I wanted to make a career change at about 30 years. And this gave me an opportunity to come in, and we decided that we were going to retire here, and so it gave me an opportunity to be a little closer and supervise the building of my house and that sort of thing. So that's the way I wound up here. But while I enjoyed my stay in Raleigh and worked with some great people, my forte, I think, was in public relations and leadership. I just didn't fit well in a small room with no windows, a desk, and a pile of paper on the table to shuffle through.
You'd rather be out dealing with
Oh,
people?
yes.
Yeah, I can understand that.
And so, you know, things seem to work for the betterment of you if you sort of put your trust in it, and it worked out fine because it allowed me to come here, and so here I am, and have no regrets, and everything is, and have nothing but good feelings about the agency as a whole. There are some things I would like to have seen that wasn't done, but then that wasn't my call.
When you look back on it now, what were the most satisfying things that you did in your career?
Well, there are probably two things, Bob. One is public acceptance. In the area that I would go to, it seemed like I was able to get a little bit better public acceptance of the program, of the commission and the program. I worked hard towards that. That took care of a lot of problems in itself. Because wildlife conservation is not a game problem. We can grow game and put fish in the streams.
Managing people.
Managing people is, in my opinion, the big thing. And I was a firm believer that any wildlife officer should belong to some civic club in his community. And I tried to follow the lead. I always belonged to some civic club, and this gave me a keyhole to go through and contact the people, feel how the people were feeling, and I just think it's a good idea for anybody in public service to belong to some civic organization so they can have the feel of the people they're serving. The second is helping what little that I helped in bringing the enforcement organization from a day where we had unpaid deputies, malcontents, misfits, bringing from that to a top-notch organization staffed by people who were well qualified, highly motivated, and ready to take on the responsibilities of the organization and to take it on into the 21st century. I guess that's the two of the accomplishments
Right.
that I would.
And we did that, and you played a big part in it. In fact, the enforcement division became the model for the whole country.
Yes.
We had delegations coming here studying what we did. Use of aircraft was one thing that we developed, and you had a hand in that too.
We had people from all over the country that would come and attend our recruit schools
Yeah.
and our specialized schools. They were all amazed at how far we had come in the development of people, and for some reason, people had the impression that if you were a wildlife officer, that you had no interest in other types of law enforcement. Well, that's completely untrue, because you had to work very closely with other areas of law enforcement. And I understand that the organization has now progressed to the point where they have full power of arrest for any violation of the law now.
They do, yeah.
And in fact, they go to breathalyzer schools and give breathalyzer tests for people who are operating boats under the influence of alcohol. And all of this is just a snowball that I feel like we began in 1956 and
I agree.
55
I agree.
and come forward. And
Yeah.
of course, it would have been very easily for the front office, that is you, Mr. Patton, and the other people, to have slapped us down and kept us as game wardens. And that's exactly about what we would have been. We would have, I don't know what a comparison would have been, but I know what we had when I went to work in 55. You had some political appointees. If the sheriff or the county commissioner called the Raleigh office and said, "Hey, I want so-and-so put to work," prior to the changeover, Dad felt compelled to do it. And so the sheriff didn't want him as a deputy sheriff, so he made him a wildlife officer.
Unloaded.
Yeah. So now we're the training ground and the personnel pool for about any of the agencies. Some of them have gone on to the SBI, FBI, different agencies throughout the country, Fish and Wildlife Service, and we feel good about that. I do. I feel
Oh, yeah.
good.
Well, I can remember a lot of instances where other law enforcement agencies came to us for help, particularly if it was search and rescue or something like that. We did a lot of that.
Remember one instance, you and I were together up here on Cape Fear River, where a bunch of boaters had got in trouble, and we found the guy, and in fact we watched one trying to rescue him drowned up there trying to get
That's true.
to a person. But anytime you would have a manhunt or some, well, take for instance the big breakout when Yank Stewart broke out of the prison in Yanceyville. We worked up there for weeks. We were there when had the prison break, and the guy killed the prison warden's wife, and was running loose up above Raleigh there and committed rape.
Got out of Polk Prison, that's right.
We caught him, and Tom Williams and I were the first to get to him. We found the man, and he had killed himself. In fact, the SBI sent me a picture one time of this guy. And he had, just as we closed in, he shot himself. So it was just one thing after another. And of course, the airplane played a great part in the law enforcement activities of the state. I remember for one particular time in Columbus County, Bob Milstead, who was flying at the time, went down and got the group together, and they tore up and found and tore up 76 quail traps in one day. They had never worked that. The quail were so plentiful in Columbus County at the time that it was just sort of poo-poo. Nobody thought much about it. Well, Bob, being from Rowan County, where the quail was not near as plentiful, this was his beat. He would find a house, and there'd be always a little path leading out. He'd follow that little path, then he'd spot the quail trap, and he'd direct the men in. And I believe it was 76, that number. They destroyed 76 traps that day. At the time, Columbus County was an area where you did a lot of people from up north would come and quail hunt, and the farmers served as guides on the days off. The quail and fishing, and we used to do motorboat enforcement and spotting.
Well, I can remember one incident I think you were involved in up at Butner, working on night deer hunting when we caught some of the local police.
Yeah.
And matter of fact, our recollection is they rammed one of our cars. Weren't you there that night?
I was there that night, and that sort of began the ending of that confrontation. We had a lot of information that they were, if not doing it themselves, they would look out for other people to do it. There was highway patrolmen involved, and several of the Butner police. They would harass us. If they found out we were there, they would come in and shine their lights to see what draw us out. And we had several confrontations with them. And of course, at that time, Mr. Patton, I believe, or someone, called the head of the Butner or the Department of Mental Health. I believe it was under
the hospital up there. Yeah.
And I think they resolved that. I think Mr. Patton didn't. I think he turned off his hearing aid and proceeded to talk for a while and tell them what was going to happen if they continued that line of activity. He was good at that.
He had a way of winning those arguments.
That's right. And one was turn his hearing aid off. And great man.
Oh yeah.
Thought a lot of him. And that was the days. And I was just trying to think of some other things that we did with the airplane that were noteworthy. Yes, for instance, license sales have always been a very important thing in our organization because we
funds the program.
It funds the program. Well, this was another area that I had a lot of good feelings about. That wherever I went, the license sales doubled. We had a county in Burlington, Alamance County, and it's pretty obvious that not a lot had been done there. And Richard Jarrett, who graduated from recruit school with me, he came back and was the wildlife officer there in that county. And as soon as he came, he and I started working it pretty heavy. And I got a call one day from J. Thomas Williams, wanting to know what in the blank was going on up there. And I said, I don't know.
He was our finance officer.
He was our finance officer. He said, well, the license sales had tripled in Alamance County. And he didn't know what was going on. He didn't know whether somebody had been absconding with the funds or just what happened. And J. Thomas, being a person of high perception, noticed that and called and wanted to know if I had any explanation for it. I said, not other than they were just checking license up here. I remember with the airplane one day we caught about 80 people in one day with the airplane.
Yeah, I think I was there.
And on on that day, I ran down 11 people myself. You would stop and here they would go running.
I remember one case where the guy ran, I think you were one of the guys chasing him, and I was directing you. And he got in a thick place, a lot of briar, brambles and so forth, and he crawled under a big bunch of that. You guys went by him, finally came back and dug him out, but hauled him out by the heels.
It was a lot of fun, and one memorable occasion was the men that I had at the time were young and very athletic, and we stayed in good shape because we were in the woods practically all the time. They got into a race. A bunch of boys were out there hunting, and they took off running, and so you learn not to just run directly after them. That's not the way that you catch people by running them straight on. Anyway, we finally caught them. It was 4 young men from college students down at the University of North Carolina, and they swore us to secrecy that we would never tell because they were on the track team down there, and that was a pretty humorous thing. They were very adamant they did not want that to get out. There was no bunch of wildlife officers had run them down. But this was daily. In those days, in the Piedmont, North Carolina, any day, you could get out and check 50 to 100 small game hunters. Yep. Today, you're lucky to find 10 people on a Saturday. They're all off deer hunting somewhere now. So it seems like we have let, as I mentioned earlier, that something has happened to our small game population. We have not put the emphasis on that we should have, and we're reaping our just deserts by not doing that, because now the deer are going everywhere and creating lots of problems. We can't kill them out fast enough, it seems like.
That's right. It's shifted in the direction of big game, and now we have too much.
Yeah. So I don't know what the answer is.
One more thing I'd like to ask you about. All of this work got you some rewards and recognition.
Oh yes.
Could we look at that, or you
Sure.
tell us what?
I've got some plaques right back here, Bob, that I'd like to show you.
Okay.
If you have time.
Can we do that?
Sure.
Okay.
Go.
John, here are a few little mementos of my career, and for instance, this is one here that the U.S. Forest Service gave me in recognition of the spirit of cooperation in law enforcement activities, dated August of 1984. This is from the men of District 9 in appreciation for whatever services I gave them. And this is something my wife prepared for my retirement party, and it shows the different positions that I held within the agencies, starting with protector, which is what we were called then, to patrolman, to assistant supervisor, supervisor, and major. And these
Rank insignia.
rank insignias. This is one that the Wildlife Commission gave me, Major Leon Lineberry, appreciation for career distinguished service from the people of North Carolina since 1955. This is a certificate from the governor, certificate of retirement, Governor Jim Martin. And this is another certificate of service to myself, and it's from the, let's see, from the Wildlife Resources Commission, and was given to me by the then director, Vernon Bevel. These are just a few of the things that somebody's somebody has decided to confer on me, and so we dedicated this side of their wall for that.
Good.
That's great, Lawerence. That's a nice display, and you've certainly earned all of those things and deserve that kind of recognition. And I'd like to personally say it's always been a joy working with you. And might add that